What's up, preppers? Welcome back to another video. And I saw a video on YouTube the other day, and it was £1,000 to prepare for civil war in the UK. But no matter what you're preparing for, can you prep for £1,000? And if to do so, what would I get if I had no other preps, basic household, £1,000 is the budget? What would I get to try and ensure my family's survival, at least in the medium term? I've put together a list of the things that I would get. There's one or two links in the description below for some of the stuff I mention. Other stuff, it's a case of going out, searching for it and doing your best with it. But let's get down to it and see how we'd prepare with just £1,000 budget in the UK for any sort of major SHTF or TO Tawaki event. So the number one thing generally is water. Water is life. Now, my budget comes in where I'm spending quite a proportion on water compared to food and things like that. When it comes to gathering resources, water has to be key, and it's something I really don't want to have to rely on someone else for if it came to it, or hunting, etc. Whatever you decide to do to gain food, to gain other supplies, water has to be key. So my aim here with this budget is to store 150 litres of water at a minimum, with a method to purify more. So first in, water containers. I found 25 litre stackable containers. 6 of these come in at $55.99. Really good. It's a black plastic, not a see-through plastic, so you're not going to get contamination through the sun. Food grade material and very easily stackable. So that's going to store the initial amount of water. And then of course, how we're collecting more. A basic rain catchment system would be adding a water butt to your current drain pipes. You can get this 100 litre water butt for $35.99. I've also seen them at places like Lidl and B&M Bargains on offers as low as £20. But for the argument's sake, if they weren't available or they didn't have the right fittings, because this comes with everything, I found this one. Filtering that water, of course, we're looking at a Sawyer Mini. It's £47, between £47 and £48 at the moment. It's not a cheap water filter, but it is really good, and it's guaranteed life up quite a lot of water filtration. You shouldn't need more than one. Get two if you've got the budget for it, but in this challenge, just one of them. And then water purification tablets as a last effort to purify. Don't forget, you can also boil water to clean it. There's other methods to do so. There is homegrown methods to do so. There's gravity filters. There's all sorts of different ways you can do it. This is just for this budget. I found water purification tablets for 200 at £5.89 online. So banging 1,000 of them in would come in at £29.45. So that's my water purification plan, £169.25 total within this challenge for that one, and aiming to store that 150 litres. Now food, I didn't want to start putting links to food on Amazon up there. There is some good deals now and again, but the best thing to do with food is shop around at supermarkets, bulk buys, anything like that you can get. So what I've roughly done is round it off. If it's a strict budget, I'm afraid the diet's not going to be too varied. It's going to be quite restricted on what it is, but it's about bulking. It's about making sure you've got enough to last around 90 days is kind of what I'm looking at here, based on a single person at 2,000 calories a day. So rice, the biggest filler, 10 kilograms of rice. I've put a budget down at £15. I've seen it as low as 10. There's offers on stuff like that. Again, shop around. Same with all of these. Pasta, 10 kilograms, £15. Dried lentils and beans, 5 to 10 kilograms for £20. 5 kilograms of oats for £8. And canned foods like tuna, beans, tomatoes, possibly canned meats if you get them on a good offer. Spending around £60 just on canned goods there. If you want to have an idea of how much that, like equate to, have a look at early videos on the channel where I've done £10 shops and £20 shops, and you can see how much you actually get for that. Long life extra stuff, things like peanut butter, honey, milk powder, things like that. I've put a £20 budget down for that, just for some extras. Salt, sugar, stock cubes, oils, spices, the key, especially if you've got lentils, rice and beans and things like that, to add flavour, to be able to cook them, to be able to spice them up, to be able to not get that food fatigue. So there's a £25 budget on that. Multivitamins, a 90-day supply. I've put £10. It's all over the place. I'll try and find a good link for Amazon after this, but I've seen them at £8, £6. I've seen all sorts of prices for a half decent multivitamin to last that long. And then long life meals, so MREs, possibly freeze dry if you can find a really good deal on it. I've put a budget down of £40 for that. So the food budget for 3 months comes in at £213. This is based on just me. Okay, this is not based on a family of 10, a family of 4, or whatever. This is based on me. And of course, the goal was 2,000 plus calories a day. So I think I can kind of hit that benchmark, but I am going to be having oats every day, possibly with a bit of honey, etc. Warmth and shelter. So shelter, of course, this scenario is based around bug in. So we are sheltered from the elements essentially with our house. But it's about keeping warm. It's about extra things like that. So a good, solid, sturdy wool blanket is awesome, right? I've recommended the removal blankets before if you want to buy in bulk, because you can stack them up. They're dirt cheap. That's one good thing. But a good solid wool blanket, you can get one which is a stadium blanket, which is windproof, waterproof, all this stuff, at $22.99, which is an absolute bargain. If you had one of them per household member, you're not going to go far wrong. Sleeping bags is a huge scope. You can get dirt cheap ones, you can get really expensive ones. I found a happy medium, and this is a 4-season mummy sleeping bag at $19.99. Mylar emergency blankets. These are the tinfoil things that you see in medical kits and things like that. I don't hold much stock in them. I don't think you're going to survive just on that. It is what it is. It's a one-time use thing. However, I did find a 12-pack for £10.19. The secondary use of this, of course, you can layer it on the ground. If you're sleeping all in one room, you can put it over windows to kind of reflect any heat there. There's all sorts of different uses for them, and at that price I thought it was a bargain. Good survival tool to have. A base layer is something a lot of people don't have that they should look at. So I've put £20 down for budget thermals. So like undershirts and under trousers. You can get them cheap. You can go to places like Primark in the UK. I'm sure you can get them at places like Walmart in the States. But just a cheap base layer to have as an emergency thing. It's a lot easier to warm yourself than it is to warm an area. Small camping stove. There's loads of these scattered around online, but I did just get the one from Go Outdoors for £15, which was a steal, and it's so much more solid than the previous ones I've had off Amazon that cost me £20-30. So no link for that, but check out Go Outdoors. You can get that one. Outwell, I think it was called, and it was in my last camping video. Fuel for the stove, of course. Can't recommend enough the one that me and both Scottish Prepper had got a deal on Amazon, which I'll link below, for as long as it lasts. 28 of these gas canisters for $29.99, just over £1 a can. You can't beat that price anywhere that I've found in the UK. If you can beat that price, please do tell me where below. Candles, tea lights, waterproof matches, lighters, so just alternative ways to light the room. If you're not using LED lights, if you're not using backup power, £20 on that will get you enough to get you by. I don't think you can get really good deals on candles, but not really on Amazon online. It's kind of going into pound shops and places like that, getting the bags of tea lights and things. So make sure you look out for that. I've put a £20 budget down for extras of that. A power bank and solar panel. Now, I know you can spend £1,000 plus on solar just for a backup power, but doing it at a budget, you can get something like the Anker C200, and you can get a cheap enough panel from places like the Plum Direct or whatever it was called, that Brian thing. I'll try and find it and link it below if I can. But a cheap enough, decent solar panel and a small power bank like that for a £200 budget, it's going to do what you need it to do. If it's just charging little radios, if it's just charging torches and things like that, then that's what you're going to need it for. You're not really going to need to keep your phone that much charged, because in this situation, I'm assuming we've no signal or anything like that. But entertainment purposes, maybe you got videos on there, maybe you do want to keep that charged up. But £200 budget, that it is a big chunk of that budget, so think about that one really, and where else you could put that £200 if you didn't do backup power. The shelter and warmth comes in at £338.16 total. Medical supplies, a decent first aid kit, half decent first aid kit, spending about £30 on. I've spent more on like bigger kits, and making your own as well is a good idea. Buy a small base kit and add to it. But I put a £30 budget down for that. That would get me the basics of what I need. Over the counter meds, I've put a £20 budget on. Now you can get paracetamol and ibuprofen dirt cheap in this country, so you can stock up on that. But think about antihistamines, rehydration medications, stuff that makes you go and stuff that stops you going, anti-diarrhea stuff. They're the over-the-counter meds we want to be thinking about in that situation. So a £20 budget for that. Extra wound care, so things like the antiseptic ointment that you can find online, because obviously we know antibiotics are not as readily available in this country, so it's an antibiotic ointment that you can get, and that you can find that online. Just Google that and you'll find what I'm on about. But £20 budget for things like that, and maybe extra gauze and things. A £10 budget on hygiene, which is just falling under this section, but we're talking soap, sanitary items, toothpaste, things like that. Again, shop around. Best prices for things like that are always going to be things like the pound shop, so there's no point giving you links to stuff like that. Tools and misc. So this category is what it is. So a good multi-tool. This again is a big chunk of my budget, but this is personal to me. If I had nothing else, this is personal to me. So you might be able to get away with a cheap multi-tool, something like that. I've gone for the Leatherman, and in this case, it's the Leatherman Wingman, which is a good solid entry-level Leatherman at £70. A multi-tool is not an absolute necessity in this situation, and you could probably get like a Mora knife for like £8, but this is personal to me. This is what I want. £70 gone on a Leatherman for that budget. A hatchet and axe, so a Banco hatchet will set you back around £16, and Banco do saws, and in my time doing joinery, it's all we ever used when it came to saws, so I kind of trust the brand for a low-end budget. A brand, Banco hatchet, £16. A wind-up radio combo. I've sung the praises of the one I've got a load of times. It was £25. It's now £17.99 on Amazon. Wind up radio. It's got a little solar panel. You can put batteries in it. It's got a rechargeable battery. It's got the crank radio as well as torch and light. So it's a great little unit for the price, and it's a great backup. Head torch and batteries, I've put a budget at £20. This is something else you can find cheaper at camping stores that you can really find online. And if we're talking about low budget, that's where you want to be going for stuff like that. Duct tape, rope, tarp, and bin bags. I've balled that all together of kind of like extra utility stuff, bin bags especially. Cable ties would be thrown in there as well. Put a £20 budget on that, just get what I can. Basic tools, so think about boarding things up if you have to secure things yourself. So hammers, screwdrivers, nails, etc. I've put a £30 budget on there for extra tools. And buckets, gloves, and extra liners and sawdust and things like that. We're talking toilet time here. I've put a £20 budget on that. That rocks in at £193.99 for tools and misc. So altogether, they all rock in at £994.39. I think I'll spend the extra £6 on some nice chocolate bars as a treat. But we didn't take into account security, home security, things like that, reinforcing doors with wood planks or the actual door bars that you can get. I could easily spend another £200 alone on security, but the budget was £1,000. It's about staying alive. Hopefully I've got enough nous about me to be able to block the doors with things that are lying around the house. So if I only had £1,000 to spend on prepping, that's what I would be doing. And that would get me through, I think, 90 days of social collapse, social disorder, etc. What do you do after 90 days, you ask? Well, if you've not got the means to grow your own food, then you're going to have to find it, source it, team up with other people, etc. That is a whole rabbit hole we can go down another day. And we, in fact, have done on firesides many times in the past. So there we go. That's my list. Some of the links for some of the things are below. Yes, they're affiliate links through Amazon, so I'll make a penny if you buy something. Woohoo! But just think about how I've broke that down. Water and food are taking nearly 40% of the whole budget. And then warmth is another big chunk, purely because you're paying for fuel and things like that. And the power bank was a massive chunk. Now, the power bank, I would say, maybe not essential. If I dropped £200 for the power bank and solar panel there, I would throw that into extra candles and stuff like that. So I've always got a form of light, extra batteries for lanterns, and the rest would go into food. Potentially storing some bottled water as well, if I've got the redundancy in that. So, and the other big purchase, of course, was the Leatherman at £70. You can get a cheap multi-tool for £10-20. You don't even need a multi-tool. You could get like a Mora knife, a little bushcraft knife. I've got the Whitby one that costs like £20. That would work. So it's all personal choices. It's all options and choices, as UK Prepper Man would say. But yeah, that's what I would do. That's my list. Let me know your differences below and what you would do different. And if you are new to prepping and this is your budget, then feel free to join the community and talk to people. Get some good advice, test your gear. Thanks very much for tuning in for this one. Can't wait to see your comments on this one, what you would change, what you think was a ridiculous idea, what you think was a good idea. Please pop them below and I'll read all them comments, and I'll see you all in another video really soon. Goodbye.